What if we witnessed the final chapter of a legend in Montreal? Tonight, the Canadiens didn't just beat the Washington Capitals, they may have closed the book on Alexander Ovechkin's final game at the Bell Center. An emotional night, a historic player, and a massive win for the playoff push. Was this a farewell to Ovi or a statement from a rising Habs team? Let's break it all down. And as usual, let's talk some puck. Welcome to another edition of PuckTalk Montreal, the post-game show. I'm, of course, Costa Popolius, and it started off like a weird game, right? It seemed like it may not have gone Montreal's way, but overall, when you take a look at the grand scheme of things, they did exactly what we asked. Pedal to the metal for 60 minutes, and they got the best of the Washington Capitals. And it started out early, so let's get right to the game highlights, because there's a lot of them. And when we talk of game highlights, just 30 seconds into the hockey game, Caufield gets a breakaway against the Washington defense as he blocks a shot off the stick of Chychrun, and he has no way of catching up. And you could kind of tell that Caufield had picked this corner already before he even took his shot. Watch this as he's bearing down, never looks away, knows it, fires, and scores. And that makes it 1-0 Montreal early on in the hockey game. Well, how long did that last? Well, about 13 minutes. And who broke that goose egg and got the tie? Who else? The guy we talked about off the onset, Alex Ovechkin, in tight instead of from his office. The puck comes across the crease after Dobeš makes the initial save, and they right onto the stick of Ovechkin, who's on the back door, and he makes it 1-1. On that goal, you saw Dobson push his man, and that's how the puck got across the crease because it got caught up in his skates. Nothing that Dobeš could go on that goal, right? It basically popped off right onto the blade of Ovechkin's stick, making it 1-1. But at 14:19 of the first period, guess what? Cole Caufield got his 35th of the season in tight again as he got a pass from Nick Suzuki at the goal mouth. Here's a long shot from Struble. Save made by Lindgren. Suzuki to Caufield. Backhand. That makes it 2-1 Montreal. Here it is again. Right over. Ovechkin late coming back to defend. And it's 2-1 Montreal going into the first intermission. And it feels like a good hockey game because up until that point, while the Canadiens didn't really have a lot of shots on goal, it seemed like they were dominating possession. And that's always a good thing versus a team like Washington. Well, before we got into the intermission, though, it looked like Cole Caufield was going to have his hat trick. A great pass from Kirby Dach, a better save by former Habs goaltender Charlie Lindgren. Backhand pass in front. He delays, he waits. Lindgren keeps the glove there, and Caufield puts the puck into his glove. Great save by Lindgren. He made another one later on in the hockey game on Nick Suzuki on a breakaway. So to blame this one on Lindgren is a little much. He didn't stop what he should, but when they were difficult, he made the saves that he had to. And that's kind of a microcosm of the career of Charlie Lindgren. He's a good goaltender. He just can't keep it consistent from one situation to another. But we go to the second period. And what happens? At about the 12:22 mark, Alex Newhook parts the Red Sea, well, in this case, the White Sea, and comes in to the zone, drops a pass for Zach Bolduc, who was back in the lineup, and he gives it right to Matheson, who waits and puts it glove side on Lindgren to make it 3-1 Montreal. Look at this. Speed down the middle, just absolutely backs off the Washington defense, and that makes it 3-1 Montreal. And just about 4 minutes later, they extend their lead. Who else? Well, the guy who was robbed of an assist earlier, Kirby Dach, on a great pass again by Suzuki. Dach in the high slot. Suzuki just puts the pass back on his tape. Watch this. He pivots out, gives it to Dach, and he just rips it home glove side again on Lindgren. And on the play, when Dach rips the shot, he gets knocked over right into the ankle of Tom Wilson. And it looked for a while like Wilson may not have come back into this hockey game as he was nursing that ankle on the bench. But he did come back for the third period, although he didn't look quite right. But that made it 4-1 Montreal, and everybody was feeling good. Up until about, I would say, the 12-12 mark of the third period. Where? Alex Ovechkin does it again. And again, not from his office. This time, Ovechkin is just hanging out in front and gets a pass from behind the net from Dylan Strome and puts it past Dobish. How you leave the best goal scorer in NHL history alone like that in front of the net is beyond me, but I'll get to that in my game report a little bit later. Then with the empty net, Nick Suzuki makes a great play on who else but Alex Ovechkin. 6-on-4 here as the puck goes down the ice and Ovechkin tries to clear it. Suzuki goes backhand and puts it far corner. Watch this again. And watch, he tries to clear, he can't, doesn't finish the hit, takes a little bit too much time, and Suzuki puts it into the empty net to make it 5-2. But the goal of the night to me had nothing to do with fancy one-timers or anything like that. It was the shorthanded empty netter by Jake Evans. On a late power play for the Capitals, it was 6-on-4. I said 6-on-4 before, it was actually 6-on-5 for the Suzuki goal. But it was 6-on-4 for the Capitals. The Canadiens killing a penalty that Alexander Carrier got for holding the stick when he had dropped his and lost his helmet. Go figure that one out anyway. But at the end of it all, the Canadiens are killing off a penalty. Jake Evans, not once, but twice, blocks a blast from Alex Ovechkin from his office, and subsequently, the puck goes over to the corner as the play resumes, and guess what? Evans goes over to the corner, fires it past Ovechkin, down the ice, into the empty net. Probably the most painful goal that Jake Evans will score in his entire career as he blocked two Ovechkin one-timers. And the loveliest part about that goal, the best part, I don't know why I'm sounding like a Brit here, but the best part about this goal wasn't the fact that, Jake Evans overly celebrated. It was the reaction of his teammates. When you go all out like that and you block a couple of shots from a guy who can absolutely let it rip, and then you get an empty netter for your troubles, it just goes to show you the love that the Canadiens have for the grunt workers, the guys that really put themselves out there to block shots, finish body checks, and do all the work that needs to be done to finish games like this. It might not have been tight, but at the end of the day, it's still an empty net goal that solidified things for the Canadiens, and we move forward from there. Now it's time for us to get to my game report. And in a win like this, there's really not a lot to criticize. Although I will criticize one thing, and that is the defensive play of Noah Dobson tonight. I wasn't quite happy with him. And it comes back to what I say about Noah Dobson on a regular basis. And it happened with Mike Matheson in this game as well. I should blame him a couple of times as well. Instead of trying to defend when they're in their own zone, they're worried about getting the puck up the ice first. And when you're doing that and you're worried about the puck itself, you tend to forget about covering your man. Matheson didn't get burned, but a couple of times he did lose his man because he was too worried about chipping away at the puck and trying to get it out. And in Dobson's case, on the first Ovechkin goal, he came in to try to take his man, but instead kicked at the puck, put it right on Ovechkin's stick because he was out of position. He was off to the side instead of being in front of the net where he needs to be to box out the guy in front of the goaltender. And then on Ovechkin's second goal, where he cruised in behind Dobson, Dobson was mesmerized by the puck. And now that play was a 2-on-2. You had Hudson, and I forget who the forward was, down low below the goal line, right, covering Strome, and you could see Strome looking towards the front of the net. That should be sign number one for Dobson to do either a shoulder check or turn around to see what's behind him. But he never did. He kept watching the puck. The puck got by him easy. Ovechkin put it by Dobish. Again, nothing really the goaltender could do. It's Ovechkin, right? If it was any other Tom, Dick, or Harry, chances are Dobish may have made the save. But Ovechkin coming in behind Dobson and popping it in like that, not much Dobish can do. Speaking of Jakub Dobish, he had one hell of a game tonight. At times he looked iffy. At times he gave up rebounds, but his teammates were there to pick him up and move the rebounds away from the danger area. But overall, when you take a look at his play, he was solid tonight. He's 8-0-2. Actually, the graphic that came up was 8-0-2 in his last 10. That would go on to 9-0-2 in his last 11. He's been solid for the Canadiens. He's got points in 11 straight games for the Habs. If that's not, and this is no slight on Sam Mountable, because again, everything that's happened to Mountable, I blame more on Eric Raymond than I do the goaltender himself. With time, I think under Marco Marciano, he could possibly get better. Whether or not he's still here after the trade deadline is another story. And if you want to know the story about that, go back to my show from last night, the live show that we had, which was absolutely stupendous, awesome, great. And the interaction between everybody was amazing. And I loved it. And I'm going to keep doing them because they're so much fun. Okay? Not only because of the subjects I bring up, but it's more the response of whoever's there. I love you guys. You make the show worth doing. So looking forward to this. Well, this Friday, I can't really do one because the Habs are playing, unfortunately, but it is what it is. But we'll get to that later. All that being said, overall, you take a look at this game tonight, and there were a lot of good things that happened. Early on in the hockey game, Josh Anderson started laying the body, and it hurt me watching. He was just throwing himself at people all along the boards, punishing them for having the puck on their stick, and that's what Josh Anderson has to do. This is the playoff push for Montreal. He has to be physical. Caden Gooley was physical on the ice as well. He also contributed offensively, getting the pucks towards nets and creating scoring chances for everybody. The one guy I want to see get off the schneid here a little bit is Ivan Demidov, because he's doing all the right things. He's doing all the work. He's distributing the puck the right way. But it just doesn't want to go off his stick and into the net for some reason. I feel for him, right? And you could see that, when he dangles, there's a little bit of hesitation on his part to let shots go. That's got to get out of his system a little bit. He's got to believe more in his ability to be able to release the puck on goal for him to be able to score more goals. It's going to come. I'm not worried about it. As long as he continues to produce points, I'm okay. He doesn't have to score 20 goals this year. We didn't ask for Slavkovsky to score 20 in his rookie season. We shouldn't do the same for Demidov either. And whether or not he wins the Calder Trophy, obviously after what we saw the other night with Matthew Schaefer, that argument can be had until the cows come home. Whether he does or he doesn't, he's among the best rookies in the NHL. And so let's leave it at that, okay, guys? I mean, I don't want to go any further than that. I'm not going to besmirch the kid because he can't put pucks in the net or whatever, but I'd like to see him finish a little bit more just for his own confidence level. Nothing more. It's not a criticism. It's more a want for the kid, right? Another guy who was talked about previously was Zach Bolduc. And I found Bolduc had a good game tonight, although I still think he needs to be a little bit more physical when he's playing a role on the third and fourth line. He tries to be. Oftentimes he finds himself on the wrong side of the puck. That has to be coached into him. So it's going to take a little bit of time. But overall, when you take a look at his game, he got an assist tonight on the beautiful goal by Mike Matheson. He did a lot of good things out there, right? He created scoring opportunities. He was responsible in his own zone. He played a very solid hockey game. When you take a look at the minutes, right, of Zach Bolduc, it was kind of limited. He only got 12-24, but in that 12-24, he didn't really do anything egregious or out of place, and he created things on the ice, which is what you want to see from a guy who's struggling. And he said to the media yesterday that he's got more to give. So this is just an example of what I want from him. Be able to create offense, but if you have more to give, you need to be a little bit more physical. You can't be Alex Texier on the boards, for example, right? I don't expect Texier to become a physical presence overnight. Zach Bolduc is built a little bit differently. He's a little bit more muscular, a little bit more stocky, a guy that can possibly throw the body. I want to see more of that from him. So the Canadiens need to, drill that into him. Speaking of the fact that Alexander Texier wasn't in the lineup, I want to know in the comments if any of you really missed him in this hockey game. I didn't. What he brings to the table is minimal. Okay, he's on the second wave of the power play, obviously, and above and beyond his skills with the puck, what else does he bring? Not very much. We witnessed that in the Olympics, where he played for France. Didn't bring much to the table, although France was depending on him to drive play a little bit. That never happened. And with Montreal, you want him to drive play a little bit more. You want him to be a little bit more aggressive offensively because that's all he brings, right? And for all the criticism that we have of Patrick Laine, Texier is just a little bit younger version of Patrick Laine in the sense that he's not very good in his own zone. He's not overly physical, but he can bring it offensively. That sounds exactly like Laine. The only difference between the two is one is born in France, one is born in Finland. So let's leave that alone, right? Speaking of Patrick Laine, everybody's still on Patrick Laine watch. And this whole story that came out about him canceling a speaking engagement, right? Let me explain something to everybody before you say anything, okay? Number one, hockey players do not do speaking engagements during the regular season, injured or not, right? They'll do public appearances like they did showing up to the casino for the Canadiens Children's Foundation because they're under contract to do so. So that's why they do it. But to say that he canceled a speaking, who was he exactly was he talking to? And whoever put that on YouTube for me, okay, I called him out and I said, what speaking engagement are you referring to? Because I've never heard of an NHL player doing anything outside of the NHL bubble during the regular season. Again, injured or not, right? If you're retired, sure, speak. I don't care. But when you're an active player, even if you're on the injured list, you're not talking to anybody. Why? Just because Patrick Laine is no longer injured. He needs to get back into the lineup. That should be his primary focus. And all this stuff coming out about allowing his agent to talk to other teams, here's the thing, okay? And I'm going to repeat this until the cows come home, okay? And you could say I'm wrong for as much as you want, but all followed this game long enough to know that when there's negotiations going on for a trade, the agent doesn't get involved, okay? The only way an agent would get involved in a trade would be if there's a possible trade and sign deal on the table and the agent is told by the team that wants to make the trade that, hey, we're looking at moving your client over to such and such team. If you want to sign with them, go talk to them. If that can't happen, we won't make the deal, but you need to be able to get your top player to sign with them, right, for whatever it might be. But again, that doesn't happen very often, right? The onus to sign a player is on the team acquiring him. So you can ask Patrick Laine if you send him to Team X, for example, will he sign there? He might say yes, he might say no. If he says no, you're not trading him there because you know there's no deal to be made. But again, it's not the agent. You're talking to the player at that point. Why would you talk to the agent? And why would the agent start talking to other GMs? I don't understand the thought process behind that statement at all, right? So if somebody can explain to me in what circumstance you could see an agent talking to another team before the trade deadline for his player who's on another team, normally don't we call that, what's the word I'm looking for? Tampering, right? So in what world would that make sense to anybody? Just saying, logically. Agents don't talk to GMs during the regular season. They may very well talk to them when the season's over and their player is a free agent, but they won't do it in the middle of the season based on a team saying, oh yeah, go talk to other teams. For what? That's the part that gets to me more than anything else, is that there's no logic behind what people are saying. Okay? And that's the problem. If you give me a reason why a team that's contending would want to put $8.7 million on their cap to get him, let me know. The only thing I'm not sure of when it comes to the playoff salary cap is whether retention applies. Because normally your contract is during the regular season. If another team retains salary, does that apply to the playoffs? Because what I read was unclear. I really didn't get the vibe. It probably a yes, but I didn't get a real understanding. So if anybody could put it into the comments and outright say it, let me know, because I'd love to know that story. So what's next for Montreal? Well, they're off until Tuesday when they play their first of 3 games on the road. As I bring up the schedule here, I believe they're in San Jose first. if memory serves. Come on. Computer's slow again. Gotta love it. And I'm an IT guy. Go figure. Oh, of course you go to the wrong schedule. Sometimes the NHL site drives me batty. But anyhow, yes, Tuesday they play against San Jose at 10 p.m. Then, of course, they play versus the Ducks on Friday, hence the reason why we can't have a live show. And then they play against the Kings on Saturday. So, maybe. Probably not. At the end of the day, the Canadiens are going to be playing their last back-to-back out west. It's 3 games, right? So you've got travel from Anaheim to LA. There's no travel. You're driving, right? So San Jose comes first on the 3rd, and they face off against Macklin Celebrini. Then you've got the game versus Anaheim, and then the next one versus the Kings. In my mind, if I'm thinking about goaltending, for example, it's Dobish, Montembeault, Dobish. That's the way I look at it, right? It may very well not go that way, but that would be the way I would look at it, one way or the other. It's going to be a fun ride going down the stretch here. These 3 games, especially out west, are going to be critical for the Canadiens. They need to get points. 4 out of 6, most likely. Whether it's a tie, whether it's 2 ties and a win, or 2 wins and a loss, I really don't care. You need 4. These are extra points that you get that are away from your division. So these wins are critical. Canadiens are now 18 points away from that magical number 93 that everybody's talking about. So hopefully they can come out and do a little bit more damage as far as clinching is concerned. And when you take a look at the standings, the Canadiens are now 3rd in the division after this win tonight. Buffalo's still 2nd. Detroit drops down. The Canadiens with a game in hand on Detroit as well. And everybody lost tonight with the exception of the Buffalo Sabres. So it was a good night for Montreal to pick up a win. And that's all she wrote. We'll see what happens starting Tuesday. But one last thing I want to bring up before the end of the show, and that is, of course, the career of Alex Ovechkin. He's never been the overly assistant-driven player, right? His primary focus from the day he got to the NHL to the day he leaves has been and always will be scoring goals. And for everything that he's done, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that he is the greatest pure goal scorer in NHL history. And you could turn around and say the eras were different, you know, when Gretzky scored his, whatever the case is, you can argue till the cows come home. Is he the greatest player in NHL history? No. That title remains in my mind with Wayne Gretzky because he did it all. He worked on the power play, he killed penalties, he scored goals, but more than that, he assisted on a lot of goals for his teammates. That's not something Ovechkin ever did, but that doesn't diminish his legacy. Whatever you want to say about Alex Ovechkin, the one thing that he did is he buried the puck. Got it on his stick, and you know what? In Washington, just above the circle, they should permanently put the number 8 on the ice, knowing that that's his office. Because there will be no other player in the history of the National Hockey League that was as prolific at scoring goals as Alex Ovechkin. Whether it was the goal he scored against Phoenix, where the Coyotes back in the day, when he was spinning on the ice and went over his own head and put it into a gaping net, or any one of the goals that he scored. I mean, you got to say, if there's one thing that Alex Ovechkin was during his career, he was entertaining. So if this was his last game at the Bell Center, thanks for the memories, Alex. While, as a Canadiens fan, we hated you scoring goals against our team, as hockey fans, you have to appreciate what he brought to the table and what he did for the National Hockey League. His celebration after the Stanley Cup win was epic, right? Yes, he was drunk out of his mind, but still, just the pure joy of winning the championship just brings you back to the reason why you become a hockey player in the first place. Just the fun, the joy, that Game 7 mentality that we all grew up playing in our driveway, scoring a goal in overtime of Game 7 to win the Stanley Cup. We all dreamt it. Alex Ovechkin got to live it and celebrate it, and he did it in style. So for the captain of the Washington Capitals, I tip my hat. And I say thank you for everything. And those of you who are watching, let me know what you think of Alex Ovechkin in the comments. What kind of player did you find him to be? Did you enjoy watching him? I know I did, no matter what. You always wanted to see Alex Ovechkin on the ice. Why? Because he was dynamic. He could. Here's the thing about Alex Ovechkin that everybody forgets. While he puts so many pucks into the net, he could also put a lot of guys through the boards because he's built like a tank. That's another part of his game that doesn't get enough play. When you pissed him off, you paid the price. And so, for all that, and a lot more, thanks, Alex. Again, put it in the comments, and I'll go over whatever you say. Nobody's opinion is wrong. I'll make my comment as well. And if there's something I forgot about Ovi that you want to point out as well, please put it in the comments for everybody to see. Thanks for watching tonight. We'll talk soon.